And we're live. Hey, it's Poppy K. I am live here tonight doing my first ever goddess gathering, and there's a good chance that no one is going to turn up today. I'll make a confession. I freaked out a little bit about doing this tonight. I all day was sort of feeling a little bit scared and a bit like a bit, I don't know, like I had a bit of dread about it too, which is pretty funny because I was actually really excited about doing this initially. So I got present to one of the ways that I can hold myself back at times in life, and I'm sure that you can relate to that. Like you decide to stretch your wings, try something new, something that scares you a little bit, and then at the last minute you hesitate and you freeze and you freak out. And perhaps in the past, like I have, you quit before you even started. And I just about did that tonight. I cancelled the event on Facebook. I sent messages to the two guests that I had that said that they were going to come, told them that I was cancelling it. And then after thinking on that for about 10 minutes, I came to the conclusion that that was actually really silly and that I should just go ahead and do this and honour my word, honour my commitment, have some integrity and just follow through. So here I am, possibly talking to myself, but that's okay because I'm pretty comfortable talking to myself. I've been a pro at that since I was a little girl. It's something that I used to do in front of the mirror quite a lot as a child, and my sister, who may join me on this hangout at some stage in the next little while, can attest to that. So yeah, here I am gonna have a chat with you. I am really keen to talk about fathers tonight. Now, we all have fathers as women, as men, as human beings. We need a mother and a father. Now, if that's news to you, I'm a little bit concerned that you don't know that. But, the relationship that we have with our father, whether he was present in our lives, whether he was absent in our lives when we grew up, whether that relationship was positive or whether it was actually negative, all of those aspects of our relationship with our father has a massive impact on us as women in our development. Now, I have done a little bit of research on this topic just today, just to kind of give myself a little bit of a freshness, a little bit of material to kind of bring to the table. But I can certainly speak from my own observations of what I've seen in my own life, about what I've seen in the lives of the women around me that have, I've grown up with, or who have been, role models to me as I've grown up, that really, obviously both parents are important in how they shape the way that you view the world. But I think the relationship that we have as a woman with our father is quite a poignant one, because it can have a massive ripple effect to the kinds of partnerships that we are attracted to be part of through our adolescence, and then through our early womanhood, and then later on in womanhood years. And certainly that's something that I can say was pretty significant for myself. I have had lots and lots of stories about my relationship with my dad, and he did the best that he could with the skills that he had, but he had a lot of his own personal issues from his own childhood and adolescence that he had not really ever dealt with, I don't think, and this left him with a lot of trauma, I guess you could say, a lot of anger, and a lot of volatility in his emotions. I've often had the feeling that he might have been he could have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, actually, because it seemed to me that when he lost his temper, he would regress and he would become as he may have been when he was a small child, having a tantrum about whatever it was that had happened to him. And, he'd suffered quite a bit of, I guess, emotional and physical abuse from his own dad. And it caused him a lot of pain and a lot of suffering because he never really let go of it. And as long as I could remember, Dad would tell us stories about how mean his father was. And he would always put it in the light of, I'm not as bad as my own dad. And I think his intention was to frame that that reason there, or that excuse, as a way to apologize for his own reactivity. Because my dad was highly reactive. He was very emotional, very, very temperamental. I had the feeling as a child of walking around on eggshells in my home. I never really knew if his mood was going to be positive or not. And for the most part, it was either negative or it was non-existent. Like, he just sort of checked out a bit. Now, I think that checking out emotionally, or even just with regards to how much presence a man has in his family, is actually quite a common theme for a lot of women in my own age group and older. Certainly even my partner can relate to this. He feels that his father's not very expressive of his emotions, doesn't really know how to connect, how to say I love you. I think a lot of us from childhood have grown up with a story that we feel emotionally starved by our fathers. And, we've got to have a little compassion for men, because especially of the older generations, men were simply just not really socialized in the same way that women are. And I also don't believe that men have the same needs to talk about their emotional issues as much as women do. Everyone's got different opinions about that, and I know there are a lot of women out there who would say that, no, it's just because women are socialized in that direction. And okay, that's cool. That's your view. My view is, that the feminine and the masculine are different for a reason, that polarity is there, because that's what works energetically. We live in a world full of polarity, full of duality, masculine and feminine, black, white, hot, cold, up, down, left, right. You can go on and on and on describing the two sides of everything. And so man and woman are sort of designed to fit together, and men have certain strengths, women have certain strengths, and when they're operating in their highest, best possible way, men and women just fit together really, really well, as long as they can honor each other. Now, I was getting a little bit off track there. I was telling you more about my own father, and I guess where I was coming from was the fact that I had a feeling that, I felt quite emotionally distant from my dad, especially once I got to adolescence. I really started to be quite resentful towards him for not knowing how to connect with me, for not knowing really how to communicate with me beyond just intellectual conversation. My parents are both academics, and I was raised, with that kind of way of being, because we were all very well read. I was always encouraged and sort of expected to go to university. That was just what I was, brought into. So, my dad, as much as he was also a handyman, he was a jack of all trades. He could, fix a car, build the extension. He built the extension on our house. There wasn't anything that he seemed to not be able to do. He could fix a toilet. He could do a lot of basic plumbing. He renovated our entire bathroom that only needed help with a couple of things. So, my dad is a very much hands-on man and a do-it-yourself kind of man. So certainly it wasn't like his head was always in the clouds, but when it came to communicating, his way of communicating was primarily intellectual, or it was being reactive, and it was him telling us off, me off, or my mum off, or something like that. And he didn't really seem to know how to express praise either. I know that my dad loved me, and I know that he did praise me. It's hard for me to remember those times that he did, because I've been so holding on to a story of him being critical and negative towards me. But the reality is I did receive positive stuff from him as well. So what I'm getting at is, ultimately I felt quite alienated from him, and with his moodiness and the way that he would just disconnect from me, from the family, whenever he was getting triggered by stuff, and he would just sort of shut down. And in that sense, there were a lot of times where I felt like I did have an absent father, even though he lived at home with us. Again, I know that this is a story that a lot of people would relate to, because again, as I said before, a lot of men, particularly of that generation, just don't know how to communicate, not in positive ways, or maybe just not even in emotional ways, you know. So yeah, I had a lot of resentment. I had a lot of stories. I had a lot of blame. I felt a lot of fear from my father, or of my father, I should say. I felt as though, you know, I had to be this perfect little girl and never upset him, and always keep the peace, and always agree, and always, you know, do the right thing so that I could keep him happy, because I just wanted peace and calm. And I was someone who was able to tap into all of those things, and it came easily to me to behave myself, to be a good girl, to be quiet, to go into my dream world, to spend time alone, playing alone, drawing alone, you know, doing whatever it was that I could do to not upset him. And certainly, you know, I have a great relationship with my mum, I should say. You know, my mum is very much the rock of our family, and she is a very wise woman, very loving woman, and she's done so much for my sister and I, and for my dad as well. So, you know, she was the person that I felt connected to out of my parents, and she saw me through a lot of my times where I was feeling negative towards dad. She always knew what to say. She always sympathized with me. You know, she sort of, she did her best with what she had. And, you know, mum did at a couple of different times attempt to separate herself from dad, but ultimately has been going back because she loves him and she wants to be there for him. But you know, she really was the person, the parent that I would talk to about all my problems. And dad, I wouldn't tell him anything. And that gap between us grew and grew through my teens, and certainly it sort of stayed that way even into my early, mid, and even my late 20s. And something changed for me. Now, I'll give you a bit more background. So, because I had this longing to connect with my father, and had this distance from him, I was quite attracted to men who were quite, I guess, intense, introverted, deeply emotional men, but who were able to communicate about their feelings, because that was something that I didn't get from my dad. So I had a series of either unrequited loves or friendships that I wanted to create a relationship out of, a romantic relationship out of, or even in some cases longer term relationships, but that were full of emotional angst and problems. Now my screen has frozen. Oh, it's stopped now. Okay, great. So I'm moving. I have no idea if you got all of that I was just saying. So I'm just going to keep on talking and telling you my story a little bit more, in the hopes that you have been following on from what I said. So I was just speaking about the kinds of men that I was drawn to through my adolescence, through my 20s, and how, I guess, the kind of relationship that I had or that I didn't have with my own father, how that affected or how that impacted on the kinds of men that I was with. So I read something in an article today, and it's sort of obvious, but I guess this is sort of where I'm heading with this. So your relationship with your father will have a strong or powerful influence over the kind of partner a woman will choose, even if she chooses someone who she says is the opposite of her father. So I think that's kind of funny. It's like, really, the relationship you have with your dad, I mean, he is the first man in your life. He is the first man who teaches you about what a man is. And so if you've had a bad relationship with your dad, it can really affect the kinds of views that you have about men in general. And certainly for a long, long time, I had a lot of resentment and a lot of anger and a lot of mistrust towards men, because I really just felt that the majority of men out there were dickheads. I really didn't believe that there are any good men out there. And as I said before, the men that I was attracted to were quite almost feminine in a sense, because they were so in tune with their emotions and so capable of talking about deep emotional sort of issues. And so I was really drawn to that. I'm just going to have a drink of water. And I guess in a way, it was a way for me to really rebel against the kind of man that my father, or that I perceived my father to be. The problem was that the relationships that I had with all of those men, as long as I was still holding on to these false interpretations ultimately of what my father was like, it kind of meant that I never really got past my man hating. It was still there for me, and those relationships that I had didn't satisfy me. They didn't fulfill me, and in spite of having some of my needs met for like processing emotions and talking about deep stuff, the guys that the way that I was relating with them, it didn't make me feel really like I was a woman. It was this sense that I was playing both parts. Now, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I really had this feeling that I was having to be the man in the relationship, because I didn't actually see a strong masculine essence in these men, and I felt like I had to fulfill that. Now, anyone who knows me or has known me for a long time can see that I have a bit of a tough side to me, and I went through a period of time where I actually felt quite masculine, and I didn't really feel very womanly at all. I didn't feel comfortable about being a woman. I didn't feel drawn to feminine clothing in any way. My haircuts were always sort of not fully masculine or butch or anything, and you can probably even see it with the current hairstyle I have right now. I'm a little bit, it can change. I can kind of flip towards feeling a bit more masculine, and the way that I dressed, like I said, it certainly, I had a toughness, I had a wall up, I had this feeling like I needed to assert my power, and in that process, I think I freaked a lot of men out. I know I'm an attractive woman. I'm not necessarily classically beautiful like how some women are, but I knew how to doll myself up and make myself look good when I went out. And I went through phases where men would just not approach me. It didn't matter how good I looked and who I was with. It was just, there was something that was keeping men away, and I couldn't figure out what that thing was. And at the time, I certainly didn't think I had any responsibility for that. I felt that, oh, well, men are just too much of pussies or whatever, and they just can't handle me. So whatever, that's fine. And I took on a more active role in dating. I would be the one to approach men, to ask them out, to initiate relationships, to have the first kiss. I took on that role time and time and time again, and in the process got very, very fed up and very unsatisfied and unfulfilled by that as well. So it was a solution in a sense, but it didn't leave me with any sense of satisfaction. So when I was with my most recent ex-partner, he and I had probably the most powerful, intense, and most sort of spiritual relationship that I'd experienced up until that point. We were opposite sides of the zodiac from each other, which, funnily enough, was exactly the same for my own parents. And we were both very emotionally dramatic people with each other. We both reacted against each other frequently, and we both blamed each other for everything that was going on that was bad in the relationship and in each other's lives. So it was quite a troubled time that we were together, and at the same time I felt more in love with this man than I'd felt with anyone before, and I was so convinced that he was the one. But at the same time, the relationship wasn't healthy at all, and I was even aware at the time that I was getting triggered and reliving emotional states that I experienced as a child, which were, high levels of frustration, high levels of drama, really, really feeling as though I wasn't being heard, that I was being judged, that I was being criticized. And these are stories that I would say that I was telling myself about, what my dad was like when I was growing up. So this relationship with this particular ex-partner completely brought everything back from my childhood. And, in hindsight, it was a huge blessing. I'm so grateful for that relationship, for everything that it brought me and all the gifts. And, there were a lot of beautiful times, but, especially towards the end, it was mostly really dramatic, mostly really difficult. And I honestly, I felt very much as though I was in a relationship with my own father with this man. Now, they weren't obviously very similar, but there were a lot of similarities between the two, and especially when it came to being intensely moody and volatile with emotional states. That was something that they very much had in common. And through that relationship, I started to really come to see how I needed to do something with this story or set of stories that I had about my dad, because I was really getting present to the fact that I wasn't making what I felt was progress in relating to men. I was really kind of getting stopped. I was going around in circles, and I wasn't coming any closer to having a long-term happy relationship. It just seemed so distant from me, and I still felt so much anger and pain and resentment towards my dad, and I felt a lot of distance between us. I didn't know how to connect with him to really, move past the crap that I needed to move past. And it just rippled out into my relationship. And when I ended the relationship, which was 3 years ago now, I made a choice at that stage that was the last time that I would ever chase a man, that I would never go after a man who at all, like I would let a man come to me. And, I'd been learning about Tantra, actually, or Tantra, however you want to pronounce it. The proper way would probably be Tantra. But I'd been learning about Tantra for a good few months at that stage, maybe even a year. And I'd come to learn a little bit more about the difference between masculine and feminine energy. You've probably heard the term yin and yang. So that, again, that's the masculine and the feminine. So yin is feminine. So it's the receptive principle. It's the principle of of being still, but of receiving knowledge or energy from the universe. Whereas the yang is the active principle, it's the masculine principle. So that is more about focus and movement and action. So the two together are needed for creation of life and for life itself. And through my learning about Tantra, which I started when I was over here in Perth, and then I continued the journey when I went to India. So about a month after that relationship ended, I embarked on a nearly 4-month trip in India and spent a lot of time learning and practicing yoga and meditation, and learnt some Tantra as well, and really got clear that there was an imbalance in me, in that I was fighting the masculine within myself and outwardly, and I was putting out an energy that was I don't know how to explain it, because I don't think I've ever really explained it in this way before. But I mentioned earlier about having these walls up and having this feeling that I was more a man than most of the men that I was seeing around me, which is really not the best energy to have if you're wanting to bring in a positive relationship into your life, or a positive, powerful man into your life. But I hadn't realized that up until this point, and the practices that and the rituals that I was a part of in one of my Tantra courses, or the only Tantra course that I did when I was in India, showed me how to embody the feminine, and that the feminine principle, yes, it's receptive, but it's very powerful and it's mysterious. And she knows how to be present with a man fully and look into his heart and into his soul. And I was able to, through some exercises, eye-gazing exercises and so on, become clear that I could be a goddess. I really could see that in myself, and I could be present with a man in a way that I didn't have my guard up, but at the same time wasn't overly needy or clingy or wanting anything from him. There's something changed in me through those months where I was finally able to just be present with a man and have compassion for him. And I realized how terrifying women are to men. And we have this story as women that men are scary. A lot of us are afraid of men, and we have a lot of stories, because of sexual assault or rape, or because of patriarchal ways of society having been this way. There's a lot of stories out there, especially in feminism, about that men oppress women and men are afraid of their power and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that none of that's true, but really, when a woman can be with herself and love herself fully and be present with a man with full openness and receptivity, but power at the same time, men are completely weak. And when I started to do this, I started to see how terrified men were of me. And realizing that power that I had gave me a huge amount of confidence that I'd not had before. And it also helped me have a lot more compassion for men that I'd not had before either. And compassion for my father. And at the same time as me going on this journey of healing within myself, my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And it was quite a poignant time for me, because it was hard to not feel on some level responsible spiritually, because I was doing so much work on healing and forgiving him and healing the masculine within myself, that it was just too strange to have him have this diagnosis at exactly the same time. It was very strange. And I resolved to, at the end of my trip, to fly back to Melbourne, which is where I'm from, and to spend some time, with my father and with my family, to kind of help them through that period. And I, without really addressing any of my stories about my childhood with him, I just went back home with a sense of openness towards my dad, and a sense of compassion and forgiveness that I'd not ever had before. And I was able to express more love towards him than I'd done since I was a small child, probably. I came to see him as a human. I stopped feeling as afraid of him, and I just decided to just let a lot of my stories go. And it was a pretty powerful thing to do, because I realized how all of those stories that I'd been telling myself about my childhood were affecting my relationships with men, and were keeping the right man that I really needed to be with away. So the funny thing about all of this was, I spent 2 months with my dad in Melbourne with my family, and then decided it was time to go back to Perth. And I was going back to no home, no job, a small handful of friends. I have family here, but I just knew that I had to go back to Perth. I didn't feel right to stay in Melbourne. It wasn't right for me. I don't know if I'll ever live in Melbourne again. It's too much of a big city, and the energy of the place doesn't suit me. So I went back to Perth, and within a week, got myself a job, got myself a new house to live in, and I met my current partner. And the weirdest thing about it was that it was literally like within 2 weeks of going back to Perth, within 2 weeks of saying goodbye to my family and to my dad, and I was I was back in Perth, and I met my current partner, Jimmy, who is one of the best men that I've ever met, and who I never would have been attracted to in the past at all, because he embodied the masculine in a way that to me in the past had always been really quite off-putting. Jimmy's an Aussie bloke. I'd never really been into like real Aussie blokes. He likes drinking beer, he likes football, he likes, he's a tradie, he likes hanging with the boys and talking rubbish and having a laugh, and he's a much simpler man in terms of emotional depth than what I'd had before. But he was the first man who I felt completely at home with, from the beginning. And he was, when we met, and we met on a dance floor at a little rave party, and I was in all sorts of crazy states of being at that time. I may have been under the influence, and he just spoke to me as if I was his sister. And that was something I'd not experienced before. To me, all interactions from men up until that point had been sleazy and had been like they wanted something from me, whereas Jimmy just didn't come across that way. Jimmy just came across like you know, that he just genuinely wanted to be my friend. Okay. No, Sally, I can see that. I'm just sorry I haven't actually seen my messages, so I can invite you to this. So just give me a sec. I'll work out how to do this. So, do you have Gmail? Let's see how we're going here. What's going on here? So it's impressive. I've been able to talk to myself for a good 35 minutes. So that's good. That's good. I've got 2 viewers, have I? Who are you? Join in. Join me. I want to talk to you. I want to see your face. Okay, I'm just having to learn how I do this as I go, so apologies that I'm being a bit awkward at the moment. See if I can get chat going. Okay, so if you're watching right now, because I've just tuned in, I realize that there is someone watching. Well, there's one person now. Someone's dropped off. You can chat in the group chat. And the other option, as far as I know, I think you need a Gmail account in order to. Okay, great. Let me see if I can bring you in, Sal. Just give me a sec. What's your email address, Sal? Can you? Hi, Gabrielle, it's you. Okay, cool. All right, I'll invite you. Give me a sec. I think I've got you on here. Yeah, I do. All right, so I'm inviting you now. So I'm still working out how to do this, guys, so just bear with me. Okay. So I've just sent you an invite, Gabrielle. So you should be able to get in. And if you have any issues, can you just let me know, because I'm just working this out. And Sal, I've just sent you your invitation now. So if it doesn't pop up automatically, just go into your Gmail account. I'm pretty sure it'll come into your email inbox there. Oh, I see someone. Hey, Gabrielle, can you speak? No, I can't hear anything yet. Oh, I can hear something. Hello. Sorry, I've just been like in my own world just talking. I'm like, oh, well, maybe no one's going to come, so I'm just going to talk to myself. And then I just look down after. I'm like, oh, shit, there's people there. I'm like, oh, I better like get them to join in.
No, it's good. Good. I only just tuned on because I was a bit late putting the kids to bed.
Oh, that's all right. I wasn't sure if people were going to make it, and I chickened out for a while. I was going to cancel it altogether, and completely freaked out. And then I thought, no, I can't do that. Like, just got to do it. So even if I'm here talking to myself, I'm going to do it.
No, it's good. I'm just making little goji berry balls for playgroup tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
Busy, multitasking, mummy.
Yeah, that's it. That's what happens. Well, Sal will hopefully join us too, and she's got a little one as well. So I'll be the only non-mum in the conversation. That's cool.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
really good listening to your story. Like my dad, like I grew up with my mum,
Yeah.
and so he wasn't. I mean, he was in my life, as in I used to visit him every now and again. He actually lived, like, because we were in England, he lived in Germany, but he wasn't. Oh, my daughter's calling me.
Oh, no worries.
Hold on. Sorry, I've come back.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So,
Yeah, so he, yeah, I didn't see him that often, maybe once a year or something.
all right.
I used to get like so excited when I was going to see him, but something would always happen, and it would just end up like, I don't know, something silly. Like he would promise me something and then not deliver on that promise. And as a child, like, and I just feel absolutely gutted and hideous. I'd be upset for days. But then, the next year would come and I'd be like, oh, my dad, and I just couldn't wait to see him. So it was a big like build up and then let down most times.
Uh,
Yeah, pretty horrible. And that happened for years actually. So many different things. Like at one point, I was going to go and live out there, and I don't really remember what happened. I've obviously blocked it all out, but I didn't go. Um,
mm,
and yeah, then I went out there when I was 18 to just kind of, I was ready to sort of get to know him, and it just didn't happen. And then I was like, that's it. Then I'm not going there anymore. So I just kind of left it, and that was like, yeah. Well, I'm 33 now, so I have seen
wow.
him, probably once or twice. He met my daughter. I don't know if he met my son. I can't remember, but yeah. But I'm kind of in that place, like, whole forgiveness thing. You need to do that to move on. But part of me thinks, well, he hasn't He hasn't asked me to forgive him. Or, you know what I mean? I was like, how can I just phone up and say, oh, I forgive you? Like, I just found that a bit weird, And
Yeah.
I don't even know really how I feel about it. It's weird, but I feel like I need something. I feel bad for my kids that they don't have him in a way, even though I don't know. It's weird. Hard to
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel as though having an absent father had an impact on the way that you related with men as a girl, as a young woman, as a woman now? Do you think that did you
Mm,
have any other male role models or any father figures or anyone else who
not
kind of
really. I didn't really have any. Well, there was a few. There was a few, but no one like constant. Um, or no one that I'd really let be that figure really. But yeah, I think it definitely has affected all my relationships. It's affected all of them. And my husband says it actually, like every now and again. Your dad. I'm like, what? Because I don't even know the things. I don't even know what it is, but he knows stuff. He can tell, and I'm like, doesn't even because it's just the way I am. I don't realise that's kind of been affected from that. So, but I think when I was younger, I liked older guys. That sort
yeah,
of
right.
yeah. I don't know. I think like most of the time I just block it out and forget about it, but it just kind of creeps up every now and again.
Mm.
I think for the kids, I just feel like they're going to start asking at one point. It's not as hard because we're over here anyway, and all our family's back in England, so it's kind of like, oh, well, they're all back there. But yeah, I think as they get older, there might be more questions and stuff. So yeah, I don't really know what to do, to be honest. I
Yeah.
find like I thought it was lovely that you actually spoke to your dad about it.
Yeah,
And just
it
kind of
was
like, how did you bring it all up? Like, I find it a bit, don't know really what I would say. If I rang him now, I'd be like, oh, hello. It'd be really weird. It's just really weird.
Yeah, it was intense, like, I mean, I don't know if you've heard much about the Landmark Forum, but it's quite a um, yeah, like it's quite an intense process, and it helps you sort of cut away all of your attachment to your stories and helps you see how much. And I mean, I'm guessing that, because I know that you've done NLP, and I think that there must be a bit of crossover because there's a lot of focus on language in Landmarks. So
Okay.
um, there's a lot of, yeah. Let me get to this. I'm just getting a bit confused in how I put this. So
Mhm.
we one of the exercises was to write a letter to someone significant in your life where you're acknowledging something that's not been acknowledged before, and um, and I guess up until the writing of the letter, I came to see that I'd been holding on to, like I said before, because like I had my trip to India and I thought I let a lot of stuff go,
Mm.
but there were certain things that kept repeating in my life and have been continued to repeat. And one of them has been got this massive fear of criticism and judgment. I know that's really normal human trait, but I related it back to, I realised over this weekend that I'm scared of being a bad girl. I'm scared of doing the wrong thing. And I realised that that fear I've had since I've been a little girl because I haven't wanted to upset my dad. And that was coming out in me not being able to express myself fully to like people in authority. Um, okay, Karen, just one sec. All right. So it was really affecting my confidence and my freedom of expression, and that was something that I thought I was pretty confident and pretty good at expressing myself, and I know I am, but there was another level that I felt like I needed to get to, and especially at work, with bosses and stuff like that, kind of holding myself back last minute from
Yeah.
saying what I really needed to say. So I realised that it was because I was still holding on to stuff towards my dad, and I wrote this letter to him, and then realised that I was going to have to call him because that's what they tell you to do. It's like, okay, you've written the letter now, all right, call them, and you're like, oh crap, like I don't know if I really want to do that. I'm just going to close this door just one sec. Yeah, so
What made you realise it was the connection to your dad? Is that just part of how certain questions that you got asked on the course, or?
it was just like I just knew because he's such a
Mm.
prominent figure in my life that I knew that, and I knew that there was stuff that I'd been wanting to say to him for a long time that I'd always been too scared to say. So it was just so obvious for me that I couldn't run from it, and
Yeah.
I knew that as much as it terrified me, I was going to have to do it because until I did this thing, nothing else was going to feel complete for me in other areas as well,
Yeah.
because ultimately, like, he's the most important man in my life, whether I want to admit that to myself or not. He's my
Mm.
dad, and it's because of him that I am how I am. And he's done a good job with me as well. But I could only remember the bad stuff, and even though I'd supposedly forgiven him, I hadn't actually told him that I'd forgiven him. I hadn't actually said, you know I had a story that because of you being this way, that I had to be this way. And I've used that story as an excuse to not fully express myself and not fully go after things in my life and not become big and successful and, all these things that I wanted deep down, but I was sort of holding back from myself, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
yeah, I wrote that all down in a letter, and I said a lot of positive stuff too. I didn't focus on the negative at all. Like I
Yeah.
acknowledged, I knew that he'd done the best that he could, um, with his own upbringing and with the skills that he had, and there were lots of positive stuff that he did for me because I turned out all right. Like I'm not a nutcase. Like I feel like I am sometimes, but he
Yeah.
kind of.
Don't really.
Yeah, but I'm pretty high functioning human being. So
Mm.
um, so I've said all that in the letter, and I wrote it really rushed in the morning of the second day in the car on the way there. And I wasn't really thinking. I was just writing whatever just to do the homework, you know.
Yeah.
And then I wrote the letter out to my partner who was driving, and I just burst into tears as I was reading it. And I realised, like, how big this really was. And then when it came to the break, they said, okay, we'll make your calls. I was like, okay, I'm shitting myself, but I've got to make this.
So you actually had to make the call while you were there. So there was no, like, make your call tonight and let us know how it goes in the morning.
Yeah, they give you half-hour breaks and they tell you to, like, take action on your break.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all about taking action and doing stuff. So yeah, it was really cool. And it was, you know, when you're about to do the thing that scares you, that it's not just the adrenaline rush. I mean, you know, yes, there's the adrenaline rush, but it's that crystal clear focus that you have when there's nothing else but what you're doing in that present moment. Like, you're so tuned in. And I read it to him, and I was sort of, my voice was shaking, and, you know, I cried quite a bit through reading it. And he tried to cut me off at one point, and I'm like, no, Dad, like, just let me read this, like, you know, like, hear all of it, and then we can talk, you know. And yeah, you know, he was really moved by it, and he got choked up as well, and it was a really beautiful conversation. Like, it was amazing. And, you know, because I was taking responsibility for myself, you know, like, I wasn't blaming him for anything. And I think that's where it's really important to do that, because, you know, even as children, we have the power to choose what we believe about stuff. You know, we're not these, like, passive, pathetic little creatures that are victims. You know, we kind of can paint ourselves that way. But we're powerful beings, and, like, kids can be raised in all sorts of families and come out amazing or messed up, but it's because that little child has made a decision at some point to make it mean something. And yeah, I mean, you hear about all these amazing, successful people out there who've come from just the worst.
That's very true. Yeah, very true.
And here I am going, oh, it's because my dad was it's just it's just excuses. It's just, you know, it's just blaming someone else for your own life, and I'm really.
I did write a letter a long time ago. Sorry, I've got to go.
No, that's cool. Go for it.
Do you grab any lunch tomorrow?
Yeah, a little bit.
Didn't drink a drink.
Sorry?
Didn't drink a drink.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. Oh no, I wrote a letter. Years and years ago now. I didn't send it or read it or anything, but that was quite a big turning point, actually. Just to do that in itself. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it just pops up every now and again, and then I just kind of think with the kids, like, what do I tell them? And I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what to do next. It was interesting that it popped up with your story now, because someone else just a few weeks back was saying about forgiving people and stuff. So I'm like, it's just coming at me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a powerful thing to do. Like, I can't. I mean, I've created this whole new relationship with my dad now, which, you know, it was already, like I said, like, it was on a good track compared to where it had been in the past. But saying this stuff to him, and I'll finish the story. So I said this stuff to him, and ended the conversation, and felt really like proud of myself, and felt really like on a high. Felt very much that things were going to be different. And then later on in the day, I spoke to my mum, and it turned out that Dad had sort of done a bit of a backflip, and he obviously just got triggered by our conversation, and he was quite angry and going off a bit in the rest of the day. And I took that quite personally, and I got really angry about it overnight, and realised that I still hadn't fully let go of stuff, so there was more letting go in that. And then on the Monday, I decided to give him a call, and before I say that, when I was feeling angry about it, I had a conversation with one of the coaches there, and he said, well, you've obviously just got expectations that your dad acknowledges stuff. And the fact that he hasn't acknowledged, because Dad didn't actually acknowledge anything. He listened, and he he was on board with me, but he didn't actually say any sorries or anything like that. And I was fine with it at the time, but obviously I just sort of denied it to myself. I'd pushed it down because then it started coming up. And anyway, I managed to kind of get through all that, and the next morning after completing the course and feeling in this amazing state of presence and feeling really, really good, decided to give him a call and just sort of check in and go, look, I'm sorry if anything that I said the other day upset you. That's not what I intended. I just wanted to create a more open relationship with you and feel more like we're more in communication and all of that. And it was then he said, I'm actually the one who should say sorry.
Oh, wow.
And I was just, to me, it wasn't a deal. Like, I kind of, at the time, I made nothing of it, but afterwards, like, realizing, the impact of that, and kind of like, it's pretty cool, like, that's sort of the one thing I've been wanting from him my whole life, and he finally said it. He didn't actually have the opening to say that until I opened up the conversation. So, oh, sorry, I'm messing around. Oh, my battery was flat on my laptop.
Is that a sword on the wall?
Sorry?
Is that a sword on the wall?
Yeah. Yeah. It's my partner's sword from Thailand, I think.
Oh, wow.
It's like the one like masculine influence in this room. Otherwise, it's like all dream catchers, goddess pictures. It's just my office, spare room at the moment. So yeah, there's a bit of stuff everywhere. But yeah, it is a sword. I've no idea if it's sharp. But yeah.
I just kept seeing it every time you moved your head. I was like, what is that?
I like to think of it as like the sword of truth or something like that. So yeah.
That's cool. You showed your painting as well. Like, I wonder how that's connected.
Yeah. Who knows?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, again, it's one of those things that I've been a bit dismissive of. I tend to do that when I have an achievement. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. So that's why I was like, all right, I was feeling, oh yeah, whatever about it. I'm like, no, just put it up on Facebook and make a big deal out of it, because it is a big deal. I've got to acknowledge myself more. But it's pretty cool, and it's like the best painting I've ever done, and now it's sitting in someone's house. I don't even know who it is. Like, I wasn't there for the exhibition, so I have no idea.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So now, hopefully, it's all going to start moving. It'll be pretty cool. Yeah, it should be really looking. So I don't know. I guess in terms of stuff with your dad, like, I mean, it is something that I sense that you've got sadness about. I would say, just ring him up one day. Maybe before Christmas even, like, even if you need to write down what you say to him so that you don't freeze and get stuck. But, like, I'm sure he thinks of you all the time, and I'm sure he's got his own regrets and whatever for how it all turned out, Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got a half brother who's with my dad, and a half sister with my mum. So
Oh, right.
we've
So were
kept in
you all...
contact. Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. I was just going to ask, so were you, any of you guys brought up together? So you and your half-sister were brought up together, but not your half-brother because he was with your dad? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I've kept in contact with my brother over the years, so.
Yeah. And what
Yeah,
does he say about your dad?
he's really quite young still, actually. He's only around around 13, 14. I don't know if that's
Oh,
true. So yeah,
yeah,
he's
right. Okay,
but
cool,
he
I get it.
actually, I think, also lives with his mum. It all gets really
Ah,
complicated.
right.
um, yeah, so I don't know.
So dad sounds like he sort of avoids parenting a bit then, hey?
Yeah, that upset me. But I think they do. I think he sees him a lot. Like they live near each other. So, but
That's right.
yeah, something happened there too. So that upset me heaps. So I was like upset that he kind of did it again. You know, to another child. That really hurt me really.
Do you know if he himself had an absent father?
No, that's the thing. They had a really lovely sort of childhood. They grew up in. I don't know if he was born in London or Grenada, one of the um, in the Caribbean, but they grew up in London and like they all moved there. And I think he grew up with my nan and granddad, and yeah, no, it was a good childhood. So and they were all together. So I don't know where that comes from. I've spoken to my auntie because I've always kept in contact with my aunties and my grandma and granddad, and even they like don't know what really happened. Don't know why he ended up like that, but yeah, it's weird.
He obviously just something happened, I guess. He made a story
Yeah,
somewhere, and
exactly.
so
Yeah.
alright. I don't know. I reckon it would be. I mean, I'm not saying do it now like you have to, but I just know for myself like how much freedom I feel now to express myself a bit more. And there's still more conversations I need to have, but that was the major one.
Yeah.
And then I also ended up having a bit of a conversation with an ex-partner as well. That one I was talking about before, which was cool. I
Oh.
mean, we didn't speak on the phone. He didn't want to, so we just did it via text. But that was good just to kind of clear that up and get that out of the way as well. But I don't know. All I can say is that for me, doing that, just the freedom that I feel and like the more love that I feel now because there's this opening there between us and
Yeah.
now, I'm not saying that it's going to turn out all roses because it might not, but
Mhm.
it might help with having a bit more clarity and feeling like there's something resolved there because to me it doesn't feel like you feel resolved about it.
Mm.
It's like no, it's hard, it's tough, and I mean I can only imagine like the rejection that you would feel as a child, to have someone who, you see other kids and they've got their dads and you don't, and all that stuff is there.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a lot of
not,
stuff.
yeah, it's not an easy journey, and
Mhm.
and I'm sure on a lot of levels he feels guilty for that, but for whatever reason he just couldn't step up and take responsibility and be a man, and
Mm.
which makes me feel a little bit annoyed at him, even though he's not my dad. But
Yeah.
I like relate to like what you must be feeling about it,
Yeah.
and
I know.
just
Whenever I hear that similar story, I'm like, ah.
bloody men, they always
Yeah.
avoid responsibility, and all that like the stuff that we then make it mean, and we relate it to like all men everywhere.
Exactly. That's the
Yeah.
worst thing, really. And then I just kind of think, well, I chose that journey. I chose that. So what do I want to learn from that? It's weird. Then I just don't really think about it anymore. I'm like, oh, I can't do that right now.
What's that childhood? Okay. Yeah. That's it. Well, we're human, aren't we? Like, we just put things in the too hard basket and just sort of forget about them. And yeah, and it works for a while. So that's why we do it. But, yeah. But I guess, you know, I mean, I haven't met your partner, but certainly it makes a difference when you do end up having a good relationship with a man down the track. You know, you can kind of heal through that, and I've certainly experienced that as well. But yeah, nothing beats having the conversation that you're scared to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. I kind of think, like, I don't know what he'll say, and, like, I don't even know if he'll. I think maybe I don't want to expect anything because I feel like I won't get anything. I don't know.
Yeah. It's all the unknowns.
Yeah, that's all it is, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't matter, you know, like how he reacts, it doesn't matter. Like, you've got to be responsible. Like, you know, you can't go in there and go, you need this and you need that and blah, 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 and I hate your guts. And I know you wouldn't do that anyway, but, you know, like, you can't obviously go in that way. But, you know, I mean, at the moment, there's just so much that's not communicated between the two of you that it's all just guessing games, and in that uncertainty, it's sticky and it doesn't feel right, you know. Whereas at least if you can have the conversation and just speak from the heart and say, you know, like, these are my kids, you know, like, he'd probably, like, who knows how he'd feel about the fact that you've got kids and he's not met them. And I mean, he's probably seen pictures, I'm guessing, through family. Like, you know, there's a potential for it to be an incredible, like, transformation experience for both of you or for your entire family. So, you know, obviously you're scared of what he's going to say, but you know, if you do it in the right way, most likely he's just going to be really touched and really, like, you know, he might not say much, but it might change everything about how you guys relate to each other. So, I don't know. When was the last time you guys actually spoke? Quite a few years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he was around when, like, we went home a couple of Christmases ago, so I went to visit my aunties. But he just kind of, he went out and came back kind of like after hours and hours that we'd been there. And yeah, it was just really awkward. Like, he's not horrible, like, he just doesn't really say anything. Kind of, like, I think, like, he doesn't really know what to say either. And then part of me is like, well, I mean, obviously I'm an adult now, but part of me thinks, you're the grown up, you're the adult, you need to come to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the child in this, even though I'm not a child anymore, but you know, you still are in the eyes of your parents, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it kind of strange that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So, yeah, I think part of me would want him to ring, really, and I think that's why I haven't. I think, oh, well, he's not me, so whatever, I just leave it. I just get on with it and try, you know, just forget it.
Yeah. But then, how old is he?
40s? No, 50. How old's my mum? Almost saying 40s. See, I haven't. No, he must be like 50 something. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, cool. No, I was just curious because my dad's 70, 71, 72, sorry, he's 72. So for me, it's kind of like, it's also time is of the essence. Like, I don't think he's going to die anytime soon, personally. Like, he keeps talking about it, but I think he's in pretty good health, you know, considering. Yeah. But it's kind of like, you know, if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, and you were going to die with this stuff unsaid, you know, like, how would that, or if he was going to die tomorrow, you know, and you hadn't said it, you know, how would you feel about that? Like, not saying tell him tonight, but, you know, like, the longer you put it off, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know, like, he's probably the reason he can't say anything to you is because he feels so guilty. Yeah. You know, like, it could be all sorts of reasons. We just don't know. Yes, he should be the adult, but, you know, that's ultimately one of you's got to take action, and if it's not going to be him, then it's got to be you. So it's like, you know, in my family there's been a lot of disconnection between us all for quite a number of years, and you know, it was one of the reasons that I moved away from Melbourne, because I started to feel like I was just getting pulled into the middle all the time, and got a bit over it, and I kind of just wanted people to just communicate with each other and sort their own stuff out. And I moved away, and in some ways things got better, but in a lot of ways nothing's changed. And what I've realised this weekend is that, you know, I'm the only one who's going to do it. I'm the only one who's going to really like get communication flowing again in my family, and because I'm the only one who's really brave enough to get the ball rolling. And I've been avoiding that responsibility all this time because I've been scared, or I just haven't wanted to deal with it. And that avoidance of responsibility like trickles out into so many different ways in my life, and it's something that's really counterproductive to where I want to be heading now. So this is just my little step of being more responsible and being more of an adult and being a leader. And, you know, if I've got to be a leader in my family, then so be it. You know, if I've got to be the responsible adult to my 72-year-old father, then hopefully that just makes him respect me and love me more, which I think it has. You know, that's my cat. We ended up, you know, the conversation that we had on the other day, when he sort of acknowledged stuff from the past, was amazing. Like we started talking about other stuff, and I started calling him on his excuses. You know, he's got various excuses about stuff in the family, and I was like, well, Dad, what are you doing about it? You know, why does it have to be someone else to take action? You can do it too. Like, you know, you could die any day now. Like, not really, but because he was the one saying it, so I was playing on that.
Yeah.
You know, the longer we stand around and point the finger at someone else, the longer it takes before anything gets done. So it's like, yeah, so that's all, really. I don't want to be too pushy, but I'm kind of all about making sense of people at the moment and being a bit more direct. So, yeah.
It's interesting, actually. I could kind of just think, well, if it's going to change my life and my relationship with people, then I could just be selfish about it. Really, and say, you know, I'm doing it for me, like my relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
I keep saying, oh, not now. I can't deal with that now. There's too much going on. I'm not ready.
yeah, but you'll never be ready. That's the funny thing about it, isn't it? Yeah.
See.
Yeah, you know, before Christmas is the perfect time, really, because, you know, Christmas is all about family. Well, that's how it is for me. You know, I don't care so much about the presents and all that. For me, it's just about, you know, having loving family connection. And when that's not there, there's this sadness sync with Christmas that comes, you know, and it sucks. And you can kind of pretend that it's all okay, but there's still this like, oh, there's something not quite right here. And yeah, I mean, you know, nothing's perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect situation or a perfect time. But
no, there's not. Now's not it. No, I don't know. It's good. I'm glad I'm talking about it, and
yeah, me too.
Even that means something. So
yeah, exactly. Thanks for sharing, Gabrielle. I know it's pretty hard to like share something so intimate about our past and our families. You know, like I've been really shy about sharing too much about my own story as well. So liberating for me to do it. But yeah, I really appreciate you doing it too. It makes it a bit more interesting and more fun for me, because otherwise I'd just be sitting here talking to myself, which I was for the first half hour or so. So yeah.
No,
cool.
It's good. It's great. It's great what you've done, and no, just perfect timing. I just saw your little video on Facebook, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I just thought it was very brave.
Say that again, sorry?
Look into that. I have to look into that course.
Landmark?
I'm not ready for it, but yeah, I'll have to look into it.
Took me, like I said in my video, like over a year to get ready for it.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that my partner did it with me as well, because I
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
bullied him into it actually. But I was just really aware that there was the potential to have a massive transformation out of this course, and the last thing I wanted to do was to do another thing on my own, and then not have that common ground
Yeah,
with my partner. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's really cool that we did it together, and I certainly brought more issues to the table than he did, because he's had a pretty he's got an awesome family, and Jimmy's very happy in his life and in his career, and in a lot of ways. So he went very much like, I don't know what I'm working on, but I'm just going to go with it because I'm sure I'll get something out of it. And even he got awesome stuff out of it, and had some breakthroughs himself, and um, ended up ringing his own father to tell him that he'd loved him, and had never said that to him, before, and things like that. Like it was pretty cool. So
Oh, that sounds so good.
and the feeling that you have at the end of it is this feeling of like awakening and connection and confidence as well. Like you really come to see your own power as a human being, and you start to realize how terrified we all are of each other. Like we don't even own it most of the time. Even yeah. So just now when I'm like out and about and I'm around people, like I went to Bunnings like the day after the course, and was just sort of looking around, and just realizing how everyone around me has this fear like mask on, like I'm not afraid, I'm fine, but I'm not going to make eye contact with you, and like that sort of. Pretty soon. I just wanted to say this one thing. That
You just disappeared. Did you
yeah,
know that?
yeah, I did. I stopped talking. Yeah. I'll finish the call in a sec. I'll just finish telling you the story. So I was telling you about how I was walking around in Bunnings, yeah, and everyone
Mm.
can sort of could see that fear thing, and like just I already felt like I was pretty confident, but it's this whole other level now of like just feeling more present in my body, and more clear, and more connected to people, and yeah, like I said, more confident as well. Just sort of realizing that I am a powerful being. I might not always know what I'm doing, but I've got all the power in the world to do whatever I want, and I wouldn't have had that same feeling if I hadn't done this weekend. I read all the books. There was nothing that I hadn't heard before. But it was just how it was presented, and the language that was used, and the exercises, and the assignments that you had to do, which are very much about taking action in the real world, and having those conversations you're scared to have, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, you come out of it feeling very empowered, and um, kind of a bit like a blank canvas, like you can do anything. So I'm still got my stuff there. It hasn't gone away. I'm not going to tell lies, like it's certainly still there, but I feel like I've got much better tools now to deal with, with my mind than I had before. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So I recommend it, but I'm not going to press you into it because it does take a while to come around, because it took me ages. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it sounds awesome. Really, really beautiful. Yeah, what a
Mm.
great place to be. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Poppy. That's been awesome. Thank you.
No worries. Thank
I
you.
better
Thanks
get
for
on with my
joining.
night.
Pardon?
I better get on with my night now.
Me too. But it was good to chat. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All
I'll
right. Will
see.
I see you on Sunday?
I'm pretty sure I'll be there. Yeah, even
Cool.
though I've been a bit like I haven't actually responded to any requests of whether I'm coming or not, but I'm pretty sure I'll be there. I know how much I get out of seeing all you guys and connecting, and I always come away feeling so energized and inspired. So if
Yeah.
I don't come, I'll be doing myself a disservice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Look forward to it.
Cool. I'll see you Sunday. Thanks, Gab.
Okay. See ya.
Yeah.